Welcome, and thanks for joining us for another episode of the 10-Minute Dental Marketing Podcast, a program dedicated to helping you grow your dental practice. In each episode, we'll discuss how you can improve your online presence and use the power of the internet to grow your practice.
Hey there, Tyson Downs here, owner of Titan Web Agency and the host of the 10-Minute Dental Marketing Podcast. And we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be having our AI tool read to you the audio version of the blog post. So if you're unable to get on the blog and read that, you'll be able to enjoy it, as you are right now through your favorite podcast app for the foreseeable future. If you have any feedback for us, send it over to us at tyson@titanwebagency.com. Enjoy.
Updated March 20th, 2026. Originally published March 25th, 2021. We've worked with dental practice owners for nearly 15 years. In that time, we've watched startups launch strong, stall out halfway through construction, and everything in between. The ones that go smoothly share a common thread. The dentist had a clear operational roadmap before they signed anything. What this guide covers: how to evaluate whether a startup makes sense versus buying an existing practice, what it actually costs to open with specifics by practice size, how to structure financing and what lenders want to see, which legal entity to form and why it matters for taxes and liability, every license, permit, and compliance item required before you can see patients, how to select, negotiate, and build out your location, equipment and technology planning, staffing structure and timing, a realistic timeline with the delay points we see most often. The most expensive mistakes new owners make. Starting a dental practice gets expensive fast when the sequence is wrong. This guide walks you through the operational side of opening from scratch, including costs, legal structure, licensing, compliance, build-out, equipment, staffing, and timeline, so you know what needs to happen, what it'll likely cost, and what order to handle it in. Marketing is covered separately. Patient acquisition, pre-launch visibility, Google Business Profile setup, and paid advertising are in our companion guide. If you're past the operational planning stage and ready to think about filling your schedule, that's where to go next. A note on scope: this isn't a legal or regulatory manual. It's a roadmap for sequencing and financial discipline, built on observing what separates dental startups that open on schedule from those that stall, overspend, and struggle through year one. Use it alongside your attorney, CPA, and dental consultant, not instead of them. Our free download, Starting a Dental Practice Checklist, as outlined in this post, can help things run as smoothly as possible while opening up your new practice. Dental Practice Startup Checklist. Here's the full sequence before we get into the details of each step. Define your ownership structure and form the legal entity. Build your startup budget with full cost modeling. Begin the financing process. 6 to 9 months before target opening, choose and secure your location, negotiate the lease, complete build-out and equipment installation, obtain all required licenses, registrations, and permits, establish compliance systems, OSHA, HIPAA, waste management, hire core staff, complete final inspections and operational readiness. Most practices complete this process in 10 to 12 months. Permitting delays, equipment back orders, and financing reapproval can extend that. Plan for at least one significant delay and ensure your financial runway accounts for it. Is starting a dental practice the right move? Starting versus buying is a real decision, not just a theoretical one. Both paths work. They serve different dentists in different situations, and we've helped practices go both routes successfully. Starting from scratch gives you full control over design, systems, culture, and team. You're not inheriting another dentist's equipment, patient relationships, or operational problems. You build everything the way you want it. The trade-off is time and financial exposure. A startup generates zero revenue during construction, which typically runs 6 to 9 months. You're carrying loan payments and personal expenses with no production income. Most lenders will finance 100% of startup costs for dentists with strong credit and clinical experience, but that debt still needs to be serviced from day one. Buying an established practice gives you immediate cash flow, an existing patient base, and trained staff. The acquisition price is higher, but the ramp-up period is shorter. For dentists who need income quickly or carry a lower risk tolerance, acquisition often makes more financial sense. Starting from scratch makes the most sense when you have a clear vision for design, systems, and patient experience that an acquisition can't deliver. You're entering a market where established practices are overpriced or rarely available for sale. You have 12 to 18 months of personal financial runway and can absorb the pre-revenue period. You want to build long-term equity in an asset you built from the ground up. Agency insight. The dentists who struggle most with startups aren't the ones who underestimate costs. They're the ones who underestimate the timeline. When financing takes longer than expected, construction stalls, or licensing is delayed, the financial runway shrinks fast. Build a buffer into your plan before you need it. How much does it cost to start a dental practice? The number you see cited most often is $200,000 to $500,000. That range is technically accurate but practically useless for planning. Based on current industry data, the average startup cost is closer to $500,000, with some practices in larger markets running significantly higher. The actual number for your practice depends on how many operatories you're building, where you're located, whether you're in a new shell space or renovating an existing one, and the quality level of your equipment. Here's a more useful framework for planning. Operatory count, typical square footage, estimated total cost best for 3 operatories, 1,800 square feet, 300,000 to 450,000. Solo startup, lean launch model, 4 to 5 operatories, 2,000 to 2,600 square feet, 450,000 to 650,000. Most common first practice size 6 plus operatories, 2,800 to 3,500 plus square feet, 650 to 900,000 plus. Larger vision, higher early debt service. For most first-time owners, a 4 to 5 operatory practice is the safest starting point because it leaves room for growth without creating unnecessary debt pressure in the first few years. These figures assume leased space in a mid-market U.S. city, standard leasehold improvement costs, and new equipment. Urban markets in high-cost areas can run 30 to 50% higher. Rural and suburban markets tend to come in at the lower end. How startup costs break down. Knowing the total number of startups is useful, but understanding where the money actually goes matters more. Industry data from Dental Products Report puts build-out costs at $100 to $200 per square foot, with dental-specific construction often exceeding standard commercial rates by 30 to 50%. Here's a directional breakdown for a typical 4-operatory startup. Category percent of budget. Typical range 4-op, notes leasehold improvements 35 to 40%, $160,000, $260,000, highly variable. Renovation versus shell space. Dental equipment, 25 to 30%, $100,000 to $190,000. Chairs, delivery systems, imaging and sterilization. Technology and software, 5 to 8%, $30,000. Practice management, computers, HIPAA infrastructure, working capital reserve, 15 to 20%, $75,000 to $130,000. 6 months of overhead, non-negotiable. Legal, licensing, and professional fees, 3 to 5%, $1,000, $30,000. Entity formation, lease review, compliance setup. Insurance, first year, 2 to 3%, $10,000 to $20,000. Malpractice, general liability, property, cyber, furniture, signage, MISCA, 3 to 5%, $15,000, $30,000. Reception, office, exterior. Equipment represents roughly 30% of your startup budget. According to industry data, a fully equipped operatory, including the chair, delivery system, and integration hardware, averages $40,000 to $75,000, depending on brand and specifications. A low-end equipment build runs around $100,000. A high-end setup with advanced imaging across multiple operatories can reach $190,000 or more. Agency insight. The working capital reserve is the number most frequently cut when practices try to reduce their loan amount. That's a mistake. Monthly overhead for even a small solo practice runs $15,000 to $25,000 before you see your first patient. 6 months of reserve isn't conservative, it's the minimum. What drives cost variation? 3 variables move the number more than anything else. Geographic location. Commercial lease rates in urban markets can run $30 to $50 per square foot annually. Rural and suburban markets can be half that. Construction labor follows the same pattern. Condition of the space. A fully built-out former dental office can $75,000 to $150,000 in build-out costs. A raw shell space in a new development is the most expensive starting point. Equipment choices. New premium equipment versus quality used or refurbished equipment can represent a $50,000 to $100,000 swing on a typical startup. Many practices start with a mix and upgrade over time. Financial preparation and funding. Most dental startups are financed with one or more of these structures. We see practices use all three, depending on their situation, credit profile, and how aggressively they want to preserve working capital. Most lenders aren't just evaluating your clinical production potential. They're also looking for signs that you understand cash flow, debt load, and timeline risk before they approve a startup loan. Conventional bank financing, specialty dental lenders, and major banks with healthcare divisions offer conventional practice loans with terms specifically designed for dental startups. These typically require credit score of 680 or above. Most lenders, some require 700 plus. Strong clinical experience and documented associate production history. A detailed business plan with financial projections, entity formation completed or in process before underwriting begins. Conventional loans often offer 100% financing for dental startups. Ideal Practices notes that specialty dental lenders typically offer faster closings and more flexible underwriting than traditional banks, which matters when construction timelines are tight. SBA loan programs. SBA 7A loans are projection-based, meaning the lender evaluates what the practice is expected to produce rather than existing revenue. This makes them well-suited for startups. According to Dental CPIASA, these are often the best fit when a dentist's financial picture is solid, but their cash reserves don't meet conventional lending thresholds. Key characteristics: loan amounts up to $5 million via the 7A program, repayment terms of 10 years for working capital and equipment, up to 25 years for real estate, lower down payment requirements than conventional loans. SBA guarantee reduces lender risk, enabling financing for dentists who may not qualify conventionally. Student loan debt doesn't automatically disqualify you, but lenders factor your monthly obligations into their analysis. Most SBA lenders want to see at least $40,000 to $50,000 in liquid reserves and a credit score above 680. If your combined monthly personal obligations are between $5,000 and $6,500, approval becomes harder. Equipment financing. Equipment financing is a separate lending category where the equipment itself serves as collateral. Terms typically run 5 to 7 years with fixed rates, and approval can happen quickly with minimal documentation. Used strategically alongside your primary financing, it lets you preserve working capital or reduce your main loan amount without cutting your equipment budget. Financing timeline. Start the financing process 6 to 9 months before your target opening date. This gives you time to prepare your business plan, compare lenders, and navigate underwriting before you need funds for construction deposits and equipment orders. Agency insight. The working capital reserve is the number dentists cut first when trying to reduce their loan amount. That's usually the wrong place to save. A startup produces no revenue during construction and ramps slowly after opening. If the reserve is too small, months 2 through 4 become financially stressful fast. 6 months of overhead isn't conservative. For most startups, it's the minimum buffer needed to stay stable while patient flow builds. Choosing the right legal structure. Your entity type affects your taxes, liability protection, administrative burden, and ability to bring in partners later. This isn't a box to check. It's a decision worth 60 minutes with a dental-specific attorney and CPA before you file anything. Common entity types for dentists. PLLC, Professional Limited Liability Company, available in most states for licensed professionals. Offers liability protection, pass-through taxation, and less administrative burden than a corporation. PLLCs can elect S-Corp tax treatment, which is the default recommendation for most solo dental startups because it caps self-employment tax exposure. PC, Professional Corporation, required in some states where dentists can't form a PLLC, carries more formal administrative requirements than a PLLC, including annual meetings and more detailed record keeping. A PC can also elect S-Corp status for federal tax purposes. Sole proprietorship offers no liability protection, not appropriate for a dental practice. State-specific restrictions. Entity options vary significantly by state. California prohibits LLCs and PLLCs for dentists. A professional dental corporation is required there. New Jersey doesn't allow PLLCs for professional services. Some states require licensing board approval before entity formation documents can be filed. Confirming what's available and required in your specific state before you file isn't optional. The Wolters-Kluwer breakdown is a useful starting point, but the definitive answer comes from a dental attorney practicing in your state. S-Corp election. Many solo owners eventually elect S-Corp tax treatment once the practice becomes profitable, regardless of whether the entity is a PLLC or a PC. As Drill Down Solution explains, the S-Corp structure allows distributions above a reasonable salary to pass through without self-employment tax. The savings compound as production grows. A dental CPA will run the specific numbers for your situation. EIN and tax registration. Once the entity is formed, obtain an employer identification number, EIN, from the IRS. You need it for your business bank account, loan applications, payroll setup, and multiple licensing applications. Apply at irs.gov. Instant issuance online. Agency insight. If you're opening with a partner, a buy-sell agreement needs to be in place before you open. Addressing what happens if one partner wants to exit, becomes disabled, or dies isn't pessimistic. It's foundational, and it satisfies many lenders: licensing, permits, and compliance. This section covers all registration, licensing, and compliance systems required to legally see patients. Missing any of these isn't a minor oversight. It can mean fines, forced closure, or personal liability. Required registrations. State Dental Board license. You and every employed dentist must hold a current, valid license in the state where the practice operates. Hygienists require separate state licensing. Verify renewal deadlines and continuing education requirements for every license holder on staff. DEA registration. Required if the practice will prescribe or store controlled substances. Registration is provider-specific, not entity-specific. Allow 4 to 6 weeks for processing. NPI registration. Both you as an individual provider, Type 1 NPI, and the practice as an organization, Type 2 NPI, need separate NPIs. Apply through the NPPS registry. Required for insurance billing. Local business license. Required in virtually all jurisdictions. Apply through your city or county. Zoning approval. Confirm the location is zoned for medical or dental use before signing any lease. Your landlord may say that the space is suitable for dental use. You still need to verify it before you sign. Needed for payroll, business banking, and licensing. Apply at irs.gov. Often missed compliance items. These are the items that consistently fall through the cracks on startup checklists, sometimes because dentists assume they're optional, sometimes because they assume someone else is handling them. X-ray registration and inspection. Most states require radiation safety permits for dental X-ray equipment and an inspection before clinical use. Processing time varies by state. Don't assume the equipment vendor handles this. Amalgam separator compliance. EPA regulations require dental practices to install compliant amalgam separators and submit a one-time compliance report. Non-compliance carries significant fines. We see this missed regularly on startup checklists. Medical waste disposal. Requires a contract with a licensed medical waste hauler and proper segregation systems. Your local dental association can recommend vendors. ADA accessibility requirements. The Americans with Disabilities Act requires physical accessibility in patient areas. If you're building out a new space, your architect should be accounting for this. If you're taking existing space, verify compliance before you sign. OIG exclusion list, LEI verification. Before hiring any staff member, verify they're not on the Office of Inspector General's list of excluded individuals and entities. Employing an excluded individual while billing government programs creates serious liability. Run this check before extending any offer. Insurance checklist. Get all policies before your doors open. Don't wait until construction is nearly complete. Professional liability, malpractice. General liability, property coverage, workers' compensation. Cyber liability, disability and overhead expense protection. Employee dishonesty fidelity bond. Note, many lenders and landlords require proof of insurance and compliance documentation before final loan disbursement or before granting occupancy. Completing these early keeps your schedule intact. OSHA and HIPAA systems. Both require documented, maintained systems, not a one-time setup. Opening without these in place is a compliance violation from day one. OSHA written safety plan required. Must include bloodborne pathogen exposure control, hazard communication, and emergency response protocols. Must be updated when staffing or procedures change. Infection control documentation. Written protocols for sterilization, PPE use, and surface disinfection. Staff must be trained, and training must be documented. HIPAA policies and privacy procedures. Required notice of privacy practices, designated privacy officer, and documented policies for handling, storing, and transmitting protected health information. Employee training records. Both OSHA and HIPAA require documented training records. Keep these from day one. They're what investigators ask for first. Selecting and securing the right location. Location is one of the top 2 or 3 decisions that'll have the most lasting impact on your practice. Getting it wrong is expensive and difficult to undo. Market evaluation. Before evaluating any specific space, evaluate the market. The questions that matter most: what's the population density within a 3 to 5 mile radius? What are the income levels and insurance penetration in the area? Is this a growing market or a declining one? How many general dentists and specialists are already operating nearby? Is there a significant corporate or DSO presence in the market? DSOs have entered many markets aggressively. They bring volume, marketing budgets, and national brand recognition. They also bring high staff turnover and a transactional patient experience. The average dentist-to-population ratio nationally is about 55 dentists per 100,000 people, but this varies significantly by market. Understanding your local ratio helps you calibrate how competitive the environment actually is. Read our blog post, How Independent Dentists Can Compete with DSOs in 2026. Visibility and retail proximity. From a growth standpoint, physical visibility and proximity to high-traffic retail corridors typically accelerate early patient acquisition compared to office park or medical plaza locations with limited signage exposure. Patients don't spend time searching for a practice they drive past twice a week. This doesn't mean retail space is always the right choice. Rental premiums can be significant, but if 2 spaces are comparable in quality and lease terms, visibility deserves real weight in the decision. We've watched practices in retail corridors ramp up 30 to 60 days faster than comparable practices tucked into medical plazas. Lease negotiation. Landlords negotiate dental tenants differently because of the plumbing complexity, structural requirements, and the long-term nature of dental buildouts. That gives you leverage if you know how to use it. Tenant Improvement Allowance, TA, a landlord contribution to your build-out cost. In competitive markets where landlords want dental tenants, TIAs of 50 to 100 plus per square foot are achievable. This reduces your loan requirement directly. Lease length and renewal options. Most dental leases run for 10 years, with 2 5-year renewal options. Longer initial terms often result in better TIAs and rent concessions. Make sure renewal terms are defined in advance. Personal guarantee terms. Most landlords require a personal guarantee. Negotiate the scope and duration. A full 10-year personal guarantee is a major liability. If possible, negotiate a partial guarantee or one that burns off over time. Radius restriction clauses. Some dental leases prohibit you from opening another practice within a specified radius. Read these carefully. Exclusivity clauses. In multi-tenant buildings, try to secure a clause that prevents the landlord from leasing to other dental practices on the same property. CAM fee caps. Common area maintenance fees can escalate significantly over a 10-year lease. Negotiate annual caps. Build-out timeline and rent commencement. Rent should begin after build-out is complete and the space is occupiable, not from the lease execution date. Define this clearly in the lease. Have your attorney review every version of the lease before you sign anything. The cost of a thorough lease review is insignificant compared to the cost of a bad 10-year lease. Layout and patient flow planning. Your layout is as much a production decision as a design decision. Poor patient flow creates bottlenecks that limit your daily production ceiling, regardless of how many chairs you have. Operatory configuration. Group operatories on one side of the building when possible for efficient provider movement and plumbing consolidation. Sterilization workflow. Centralized sterilization adjacent to treatment rooms reduces turnaround time. Dirty and clean pathways shouldn't cross. Imaging placement. Dedicated imaging room or alcove with appropriate radiation shielding. Avoid placing imaging in an operatory if the volume will be significant. Future operatories. If your vision includes expansion, rough-in plumbing, and electrical for additional operatories during the initial build, the incremental cost is minimal compared to the cost of adding it later. Equipment and technology planning. Equipment purchasing is where we see startups overspend and underspend in equal measure. The goal is to open with what you need at a quality level that supports excellent care without financing equipment you won't use for 2 years. Core equipment. Every operatory requires at a minimum dental chair and delivery system, overhead light, suction system connection, curing light, handpieces, and basic instrumentation. Practice-wide requirements: digital X-ray system, periapical sensor and/or panoramic, sterilization equipment, autoclave, ultrasonic cleaner, drying cabinet. Compressor and vacuum system. Intraoral cameras. A fully equipped operatory runs $40,000 to $75,000 new. According to industry cost data, a low-end equipment build for a smaller practice runs around $100,000. A high-end setup with advanced digital imaging across multiple operatories can reach $190,000 or more. Quality used equipment from reputable dealers can reduce these figures significantly. Practice management and IT infrastructure. Your practice management software operational center of your practice. It manages scheduling, billing, insurance, patient records, and reporting. Choosing software that can't scale with your practice is a costly, disruptive mistake down the road. Evaluate based on cloud-based versus server-based architecture. Cloud is generally preferred for flexibility and lower IT overhead, insurance billing and claims management capabilities, scheduling flexibility and recall automation, reporting and production tracking, integration with imaging software, patient communication tools, and payment systems. Beyond the practice management platform, your IT infrastructure requires hardwired network in operatories, not wireless only, HIPAA-compliant data storage and transmission, cybersecurity measures including firewall, endpoint protection, and access controls, secure backup system. Agency insight. Most first-time owners underestimate the leverage they actually have in lease negotiations. More dental build-outs are expensive and long-term, which makes landlords more motivated to secure a dental tenant. Tenant improvement allowances, rent commencement timing, and personal guarantee terms are often negotiable. A few hours with a real estate attorney experienced in dental leases can easily save tens of thousands of dollars over the life of the lease. Hiring and staffing your practice. Staffing decisions in the first year carry financial weight in both directions. Hire too early and you burn working capital during the pre-revenue period. Hire too late and you open understaffed and cap your daily production from day one. Core early roles. Front desk, 1 to 2 people. This is your first hire and your most important. The front desk manages scheduling, insurance verification, patient intake, and collections. A dental-specific front desk experience matters significantly here. A strong office manager or lead front desk person can handle most functions for a solo startup. Dental assistant, 1 to 2 people. Chairside assistants, sterilization, and patient preparation. In most states, expanded duty certification allows assistants to take on more clinical tasks, improving provider efficiency. Hygienist, part-time initially. Most startups don't have the patient volume to support a full-time hygienist immediately. Starting part-time and scaling based on actual hygiene demand is the more sustainable approach for the first 6 to 12 months. Compensation benchmarks and hiring timeline. Research current compensation benchmarks in your market before you set your personnel budget. Dental Post salary surveys and BLS data provide useful state-level ranges, but local market rates vary. Factor in benefits including health insurance, PTO, continuing education, and performance bonuses. These are standard expectations in dental and affect your ability to attract experienced candidates. Don't hire core staff more than 3 to 4 weeks before your opening date. Every week of salary before your first patient is a direct burn on your working capital reserve. Time your offers to align with your projected opening date. With enough overlap for training, before patients arrive. Day 1 operational readiness. Opening day isn't the time to finish building your systems. If anything's not operational before your first patient arrives, the problems compound quickly. By the day you open, these must be fully in place and tested. Scheduling workflow established and tested, end-to-end insurance verification process defined and staff trained, sterilization and infection control workflow, operational emergency protocols documented and communicated to staff, phone answering and new patient intake scripts practiced. All compliance documentation is verified and accessible. Call routing tested and verified, appointment confirmation system, active walkthrough a new patient visit from call to checkout before you open. Find the friction points while you can still fix them without a patient watching. A realistic dental practice startup timeline. Most practices complete this process in 10 to 12 months. Industry timelines note that renovation of an existing space can compress construction to 4 to 9 months, while new shell buildouts typically run longer. Permitting delays, equipment back orders, and financing reapprovals are common variables that extend each phase. Plan for at least one significant delay. Timeline phase key activities. Months 10 to 12. Planning and financing. Business plan, entity formation, lender selection, location research, and financial projections. Months 7 to 9. Site selection and lease. Finalize location, lease negotiation, contractor bids, architectural drawings, and loan closing. Months 4 to 6, build out and equipment construction, equipment ordering, IT infrastructure, and compliance setup begin. Months 2 to 3, licensing and staffing. All licensing applications filed, staff hiring begins, training and software setup. Month 1, final setup and opening. Final inspections, compliance verification, staff onboarding, soft opening, and go-live bell. If you're still selecting a location or negotiating a lease 4 months before your target opening date, the timeline is already compressed and delays become much more likely. Order critical equipment as early as possible after your loan closes. Equipment back orders are increasingly common and can add 4 to 8 weeks to your timeline if you wait. Common startup mistakes. Cutting the working capital reserve. The most common and most damaging financial mistake we see. When the reserve is insufficient, cash flow pressure in months 2 to 4 forces rushed decisions on hiring, marketing, and operations. Poor lease negotiation. Signing without negotiating. TIA, personal guarantee terms, and the rent commencement date is expensive. A few hours with a real estate attorney familiar with dental leases pays for itself many times over. Overbuilding for current needs. Building 6 or 7 operatories when you're realistically a 3-operatory practice for the first 2 years increases your loan, your debt service, and your overhead without increasing near-term production capacity. Hiring too early. Staff salaries before opening consume working capital. Time hiring to your projected opening date, not your construction completion date. Delaying compliance setup. OSHA and HIPAA systems, amalgam separator installation, and licensing applications all take time. Starting them late can delay your opening or put you in violation from day 1. Ignoring the marketing window. This is an operational guide, not a marketing guide. But the operational reality is that SEO takes 6 to 12 months to produce meaningful results in most markets. Treating marketing as something to figure out after you open is one of the most common and costly mistakes we see. What comes after you're operational? Most practices don't struggle because of clinical skill. They struggle because patient acquisition was treated as something to figure out after opening, not something to build during construction. By the time your doors open, your marketing infrastructure should already be in place. Your website should be live. Your Google business profile should be verified. Your tracking systems should be installed. If none of that happened before you opened, you're starting your marketing campaign the same week you're learning how to run a practice. Opening day isn't the finish line. It's the handoff from operations to growth, and that transition goes much more smoothly when marketing systems are already in place before the doors open. For a structured pre-launch marketing plan covering the 90 to 120 days before opening and the first 90 days after, see our guide, How to Market a New Dental Practice, Pre-Launch and First 90 Days Plan, Opening a Dental Practice in the Next 12 Months. Get the startup checklist dentists use to keep licensing, build-out, staffing, and marketing on track before opening day. If you're already in site selection, financing, or construction, talk with us about building your launch marketing plan before your doors open. This guide is educational and not a substitute for legal, financial, or compliance advice. Consult qualified professionals before making decisions about entity formation, financing, or regulatory compliance.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the 10-Minute Dental Marketing Podcast. Implementing just one of the tips you heard today will help your practice move one step closer towards dominating your local market. If you got more questions, or you're looking for recaps, show notes, and even more resources to help you grow your practice, check us out at titanwebagency.com.